To formally start this event, let us welcome the Executive Director of the Occupational Safety and Health Center, Engineer Noel Binab, for the opening remarks.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Narinig ba ako?
Yes po, ED, naririnig po.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Again, thank you for being here with us today in our 6th episode of the MagOSH-Up tayo webinar series. We at the Occupational Safety and Health Center are very grateful for your ceaseless support in our advocacies and activities. Today, experts from the Bureau of Working Conditions and the Occupational Safety and Health Center will discuss ergonomics while working from home and the Republic Act 11165, otherwise known as the Telecommuting Act. These topics are very timely and relevant today. With the outbreak of the coronavirus and the implementation of the community quarantines, most of us have to adapt to the new normal, where we relied heavily on telecommuting or work from home arrangements to maintain productivity and keep businesses afloat. The Telecommuting Act was already signed into law last 2018. This law sets out the rights and duties of employees and employers when a telecommuting program is in place. Further, this law also mandates employers to ensure that telecommuting employees are given the same treatment as that of similar employees working at the employer's premises. I understand the challenges that we are going through right now, but we cannot compromise the safety and health of our workers. I hope that all of your learnings from today will be used in your respective workplaces and continue also to be our partners in the furthering of this worthy advocacy. I sincerely hope that the situation will improve soon. Take care of yourselves and stay healthy. Sa inyong pong lahat ulit, maraming salamat at magandang umaga po ulit.
To give the inspirational message on behalf of ASECTES and to discuss Telecommuting Act or RA 11165, let us welcome the Chief of the Policy and Program Development Division of DOLE, BWC, Mr. Nicanor Vibon. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Cha. Isang productive at saka ligtas na umaga sa ating lahat. So, on behalf of Assistant Secretary Tess Pucueco, we would like to extend our commendation to the Occupational Safety and Health Center led by Executive Director Binag for these continuing learning sessions, a Pre-NOSH Congress Mini Webinar Series, MagOSH-Up tayo. So, despite our present predicament, diba, national emergency, pandemic, then maghihigpit na naman po sa atin ngayong sa 6th and the 20th. We keep on learning. We never stop learning. So maganda po itong mga activities na ganito na despite this pandemic, natututo tayo. This is good for our mental health. So with that, let me now move on to my presentation. I will now share screen.
Yes, sir. You may share your screen po.
Okay. So ito po ang ating topic. So clear po? Nakita niyo po?
Yes po, sir.
Am
Nakikita
I
po.
clear?
Yes po.
So, ito po, the topic is Republic Act number 1165, otherwise known as the Telecommuting Act. Okay? So, naglalabas po doon ang stable. But I hope you are, I'm laudable, audible.
Loud and
Okay.
clear naman po, sir.
Opo. Okay. Now, first, so this law was signed in December 20, 2018. So, medyo more than 2 years na po tayo. Excuse me. Sorry. Excuse me po, sabi ni so duman po ito sa publication kasi ang purpose ng publication para malaman ng lahat na may batas po yan. So subsequently, it was published on newspapers of general circulation on January 11, 2019. And nag-take effect po yung batas on 15 days after publication, so January 27. And then, doon po sa batas, meron po tayong directive doon, meron pong provision na DOLE with other agencies shall promulgate the rules. So, correspondingly, we prepare the document and then it underwent a series of consultations, regulations, any law for that matter. Kung i-implement natin, dumadaan po yan sa ating tripartite consultation. Palagi po yan. So kasama po dyan, of course, ang stakeholders, yung employer, workers, as well as government. So yun po ang proseso natin. Palagi pong may pag-uusap po yan. And then, pinublish din po yun, and ultimately, the implementing rules and regulations took effect last May 10, 2019. Okay. So yun po. Now, just like any other law, palagi pong may mga nakalagay po doon, ano po ang legal basis. So there is always the so-called declaration of policies. So nasa Constitution po yun, that the state affirms labor, or it is the declaration of the state affirming labor as a primary social economic force. Also, indicated in the declaration of policies that the state shall ensure a cohesive and enabling policy that will foster participation of employers and employees through the exercise of management prerogatives. So nandiyan po palagi yan. Hindi natin pwedeng alisin yung prerogative, lalo na if we talk of this telecommuting or collective bargaining kung meron man po. In the adoption and implementation of telecommuting as a work arrangement based on voluntariness and mutual consent. I would like to emphasize that. Kahit sa voluntariness and mutual consent of the employer and employee, taking into account the nature of work to be done. Okay. Now we move on again, still sa declaration of policies, na mention po doon that the state shall protect, of course, the rights of workers and promote their welfare, especially in the light of technological development. So napakabilis po yan, di ba? Yung ating advancement in technology that we have to catch up. Puti na lang nga po, because of technology, tuloy pa rin ang trabaho natin online, which has opened up new and alternative avenues for employees to carry out their work, such as telecommuting and other flexible work arrangements. Okay, now let us define some of the terms used in the law and the IIR. So, naalala ko po yan, bago yung batas, ang palaging sinasabi sa mga news articles na work from home. So, pwede na po ang work from home. So, dito po, dinefine natin although you are talking of telecommuting, but alam mo naman po sa atin, ang mention na pwede na po mag-work from home. So ano po pagkakaiba ng work from home sa telecommuting? So dinefine po ang telecommuting sa batas. Telecommuting under the law refers to a work arrangement that allows an employee to work from alternative workplace. So alternative workplace, ano po yan? I-define din po natin with the use of telecommunication and or computer technology. So that's important. For the work arrangement to be considered telecommuting under the law, dapat meron pong telecommunication, di ba? May wifi, meron pong internet, may computer ka. So kung wala pong gamit na telecommunication or computer technology under the law, that is not considered telecommuting. It can be considered a work from home, but insofar as this law is concerned, it is not telecommuting. Kung walang telecommunication, wala kang wifi, at saka wala kang computer technology. And then, ano naman po yung alternative workplace? So sabi ng batas, alternative workplace refers to a location other than the regular workplace. So pwede po, anong ibig sabihin nito? Pwede rin ang bahay na maging workplace. Pwede rin po doon malapit sa bahay. So other locations than the regular workplace. Kasi alam naman natin, kung ikaw ay medyo malayo, nasa Cavite ka, ang grabing traffic. So pwedeng doon, sa malapit lang sa'yo, doon sa lugar mo o residence mo. Okay. Now, what is a telecommuting employee? So sabi ng batas, it is a person who is on a telecommuting work arrangement. So, clear naman po yan. Now we go to the program. So as I mentioned, itong programang ito, the implementation in adoption of this program or arrangement is anchored on voluntariness and mutual consent, I mentioned. So it's clear. So hindi po pwedeng mandatory yan. Okay? Hindi po pwedeng ipasok sa company policy. So again, I repeat, it should be anchored on voluntary agreement or meron pong collective agreement, because ang agreement, collective bargaining agreement naman, ano yan, bargaining naman ay based on agreement between the management and the worker, and upon such terms and conditions as they may mutually agree. So kung wala pong agreement, hindi po pwedeng i-implement yan ng management. And in the same vein, kahit gustong mag-work from home or mag-telecommuting yung worker, kung ayaw ng management, hindi rin pwedeng pilitin. Yan po ang concept na. Now we go to the program. Ano po ang nakalagay? Sa batas po, meron po tayong mga parameters. Kasi pwede po kasi naman pag hindi po yan wala tayong parameters. So guidelines para po doon sa pag-adapt ng parties to a telecommuting arrangement. So isa po dyan, sabi ng batas, dapat may eligibility. So ano po itong eligibility? Ito pong eligibility, sinasabi ng batas, will address among others, ano po, yung requirements that must be met by the employee. Ano po ba ang requirements nyo para sa isang gustong mag-telecommuting employee? Diba? To qualify for the program. Pwede po yan, tingnan natin yung performance rating niya. Diba? Ano bang expectation nyo? Employment status. Yan po ba ay para sa mga regular lang? By the time of the employee? So titingnan po natin dyan. And of course, baka kailangan na may application na form yan para po makita nyo po. Yun, pwedeng dapat tingnan mo, may internet pa sa lugar nyo. O kung wala yun, definitely hindi po pwede natin silang pagbigyan. So it could be a work from home, but it will not fall under this telecommuting program. Okay? Ayan. Kung ano ba yung may internet ka pero ang bagal naman, mahirap po yun. So kailangan din natin yung speed ng connection. And then, may workstation ka ba? So tingnan po yung mamaya, titingnan po natin yung ergonomics on that. Baka naman work from home, hindi naman pala suitable yung makapagtrabaho kasi. So importante rin yun, may workstation ka rin doon. Diba? And then what else? So yun po ang dapat tingnan po doon sa mga eligibility. So, pwede po it's a management prerogative kung ano ba yung pwedeng task. Kasi may mga work naman, hindi ka pwedeng mag-telecommuting, dapat nasa opisina ka, di ba? So, yun po. And then, kung ikaw ay nasa mga construction, hindi ka naman pwedeng mag-work from home, dapat doon ka sa construction site. So, yun po ang titingnan natin, eligibility. Second, Code of Conduct Performance Evaluation Assessment. So, yan po ang titingnan natin doon. Doon part din po yan. So, ano ba ang mga standards mo dito? So, part na yan yung hours of work, di ba? Ano dapat na mag-report ka ba? And thirdly, observance of data privacy policy. So, importante, may batas po yan dyan, di ba? Kasi pag ikay naka-telecommuting, alam mo yung mga confidential information in the company. Di ba? So therefore, may mga ano yan, may mga dapat dyan na dapat hindi mo didivulge yan sa public or sa mga kalaban ng company. So meron tayong batas dyan, pwede kayong makasuhan dyan, and then of course may criminal penalty po yan. So importante rin po yan, natandaan natin. What else? Appropriate alternative workplace. Ayan. So saan po ba yan? So doon sa bahay, as I mentioned, yun po ang titingnan natin. Saan ba possible sites na pwede siya magtrabaho? Ano ba ang mga specific requirements doon sa workstation? Proper lighting ba yan? Mamaya po, may mention po yan ni Dr. Bea, yung ergonomic table and chair. So titingnan mo yan kasi para po maging siyang productive kung dapat yung, pati yung upuan niya, chair niya, di ba? Table at saka chair. Okay. Now, one of the main issues. Sino ang magbabayad ng computer? Sino ang magbabayad ng wifi, di ba? Kung yung internet. Okay. Sa batas po, walang nakakasaad diyan. Dapat mag-usap. So, kung sino ang magsa-shoulder ng cost. The law did not qualify that or made mention of that. So, again, pag-uusap 'yan. Kung hindi magkasundo, di wag nang tuloy. Kung hindi pwedeng mag-ano yan. So, mag-usap na mabuti, pati kasi gumagamit ng sa diba? So part of it. So mag-usap ang part
Mukhang meron pong technical difficulties po si Sir Nick po. Wait lang po. Hello, Sir Nick. Narinig niyo po kami?
Okay. Hello.
Hello po. Hello,
Tingnan mo
sir.
yan. Mahirap. Pinag-usapan natin yung use of equipment na wala ako. So, di ba? Tingnan mo yan. Paano tayo mag-work from home yan? Pasensya na po kayo. Timely po yung nawala po ako, nag-unstable, nawala ako. Ang pinag-usapan ngayon, sino mag-shoulder ng equipment? So, tingnan mo yan. Kawawa tayo. So, ano ko pula, ipapasok ulit ba ang yung ano?
Yes, sir.
Yung ating presentation? I-share ko ulit?
Yes po, pa-share na lang po ulit, sir.
Okay na po ba, Cha?
Yes po, nakikita na po, sir.
Pasensya na po kayo. Pasensya na po sa mga participants. So, alam niyo po ba, sinabutay tayo bigla na pinag-usapan natin yung sa cost ng use of equipment, bigla ako nawala. So, hindi yata ako may na yung internet dito. Anyway, so dito po, saan po tayo? Dito tayo sa conditions of employment.
Yes po, sir.
Dito na po. Clear na po ba? Oh, yeah. So, pasensya na po. So, nag-fluctuate. So, aywan ko kung bakit ito. So, we move on. Ito, telecommuting, pinag-usapan natin timing. Sino po ang sisisi natin ito? Internet provider? Sino ang internet provider nito? So, yun po. So, balik po tayo doon sa ating work days and hours. Okay. So, yun po. Dapat po, mag-uusap din. And so far as yung working hours and working days, mag-usap, ano ba ito? 8 hours in ba? Mag-log in ba ako? Mag-log out? Output ba yon? So, yan po ay dapat pinaplano rin po and pre-approve po yan para po hindi nagkakaanuhan. By the hour ba yan? So, ganun po yan. May timekeeping system dapat yan kung meron man, di ba? May time in ba yan? Time out? May meal period ba yan? May rest period? So, yan. So may schedule yan, dapat iklaro po yan doon sa arrangement, sa programa. Sa safety and health, yan po ay medyo, di ba, sa work from home, maraming issue dyan. Although, pero naman po mamaya, tanungin po natin si Dr. Bia. So I think siya na lang po muna ang doon, di ba, yung sa ergonomics and other issue on related to safety and health. Okay. Non-diminution of benefit. Ito po yung ating ini-emphasize na dati, di ba, regular sa opisina, ngayon dito, still dapat wala po yan na pagbabawasan or diminution ng kanyang mga benefits. Okay? And dapat din doon po sa arrangement or program on telecommuting, meron din pong provision sa mga hindi pagkakaintindihan or disputes or dispute settlement. Siguro dapat may sa grievance mechanism lang yan, hindi na dapat tumabas. So mag-usap, ayusin. And dapat pumasok lang pang gobyerno pag hindi masettle internally sa opisina. And then dapat nakalagay din po doon yung termination of employment. Di ba? Modification. Hanggang kailan ba yan? 6 months ba? 1 year? Paano pag binago? Nagbago na rin yung dahil hindi na pandemic after a month or so, 1 year na, so babalik na ba tayo? So yun, dapat nakapalubyo yan. Ano ba mga pagbabago or suspension or termination of the arrangement? Like, kung hindi po na-meet yung standards ng worker, pwede i-change po yan. Di ba? Pwede pong i-terminate na yung arrangement. Okay, so yun dapat pag-uusapan niya. Now, we go to the other provisions of the law. So as mentioned ago, meron po yan kahit telecommuting siya or work from home. So in which case, dapat po bayaran siya and other ways related benefits should not be lower than those under existing laws or CBA. Dapat din po may rest day siya. Hindi pwedeng 7 days siyang telecommuting. So, schedule ng rest days at saka dapat may holiday pay po yan, di ba? And dapat yung kanyang workload and its performance standards should be comparable with those working at the office or the employer's premises. And dapat meron din po siya access sa mga training in career development. May mga online training po katulad nito. And kailangan meron din siya mga training on technical, yung computer na binigay. And they have the same collective rights as the workers at the employer's premises. So we are just emphasizing these provisions on fair treatment. So alam naman natin ngayon, di ba, makalabas, so dapat din yung company should formulate measures to prevent the telecommuting employee from being isolated from the rest of the working community in the company by giving them opportunities to meet with the colleagues. Now, as I mentioned, kasi computer yan, may mga data confidential in nature. So it is the responsibility of the employer to take the appropriate measures to ensure the employee for professional purposes only. So the employer shall inform the telecommuting employee of all relevant laws and of course company policy on data protection. So yan po. So again, let me just emphasize yung confidentiality and proprietary protection ng mga data that are supplied to the employee. Okay, so ito po yan. Take note that there is a law. Data Privacy Act of 2020. So pwede po tayong makasuhan doon sa ating pag-violate ng data privacy ng company. Now, so punta na po tayo doon sa paano ina-administer po yung ating telecommuting. Kasing tulad din to, sunod din po ito or similar po ito doon sa ating flexible work arrangements, yung sa compressed work week. So almost similar concept. Actually doon po itong ating telecommuting program. So dito sa usapin na itong telecommuting work arrangement, pinapabayaan po natin, binibigay natin sa mga parties kasi voluntary agreement yan, na mag-usap kung paano ito i-adapt and the concerned worker.
Oo nga po, Sir Nick. Hello po.
So,
Sir Nick.
Just like in any arrangement for that yes.
Sir Nick.
Hello
po. Yes po.
Yes,
Sir, okay lang
yes.
pong mag-off cam po kayo, sir, para hindi po ganun sa data po.
sige. Yes po. So, in-off na yata, naka-off na. Okay, ma'am, sige, no problem.
Yan po. Sige
So,
po, sir.
Am I clear now? Okay po.
Yes po,
Thank you,
sir.
thank you.
Naririnig na
Thank you.
po.
No problem po. Okay. So, doon po, in case may mga hindi pagkakaintindihan po doon sa implementation po ng telecommuting program, so what do we do? Okay. Again, these differences should be treated as grievance. So alam naman natin sa mga company, muna pag-usapan sa grievance mechanism na nakapaloob po doon sa company policy. So Kung hindi po doon maayos or hindi pinadictate po yun, so what happens? Yan na po ang kailangan na pong i-refer natin sa regional office. Importante po na meron po tayong keeping of records. Doon po tingnan. Now, under the regulations, meron po tayong notice provision on monitoring. So ano po ang magiging role ng DOLE at saka ng employer? So the employer shall notify the nearest DOLE field or provincial office where principal office is located. Okay. Kung may mga branches po yung employer, may mga units outside of the principal office, pwede po mag-submit doon ng mga reports. So ito po yung mga reports. So ito po yung form of notice ng ating adoption of telecommuting arrangement. So nandiyan po yung mga required data as well as ilang empleyado po yan, female and female. So yun lang po, just to show you na may report po yan. So ang lahat po ng regional offices are required to submit quarterly report on this prescribed report form. So may online naman reporting tayo kung hindi nyo po kailangan na punta doon face to face. So under the law, kailangan din po ang DOLE mag-establish and maintain a telecommuting pilot program in select industries which shall last for more than a year. So yun po ay ginagawa natin. So gumagawa po tayo ng baselining, scoping and profiling, research work doon po sa ating telecommuting. So yun po. Ito po yung other provisions on company policy and practice. So there is also a requirement on periodic review. So every 3 years po yan ay pag-aral natin. So matatapos na po yung 3 years. So we have to review kung ano po ang dapat na ayusin po dito sa telecommuting program. So that would end my presentation. Pasensya na po kayo kasi po unstable po minsan ang aking internet. Back to you, Cha.
Thank you, Sir Nick. Pa-standby na lang po para po sa ating open forum mamaya po. To proceed with our second topic for the day po, let's welcome the Chief of the Health Control Division, Dr. Maria Villanueva, to discuss ergonomics while working from home. Dr. Bia?
Thank you, Cha. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes po, loud and clear po.
Okay, so I'll be flashing my slides already. No. Presentation mode na ba? Ayan na. Okay. So, we're lucky that we have the representative from the Bureau of Working Conditions, si Sir Nick, because I think this is a very fundamental or pillar of the program that you will be implementing, or including us, no? It's a model also, no? On how we will be pursuing yung work from home using technology, because this is very important. Dahil ngayon, no, nung nagkaroon ng pandemya, parang we defined already many of our experiences, no, with the pandemic as our milestone. So what was our life before the pandemic, and what is it that we're looking forward to post-pandemic? Now, with regards work from home, isa rin yan sa mga tinitignan dahil sa mga pagsusuri ng mga iba, because some of the work from home arrangements or alternative workplace arrangements, they found to have worked already without any effect on productivity. They are thinking that the work from home arrangement will be also applied, no, post-pandemic. But there are things that have not worked. So that's very, very important for us to look back to, or even now that we are having this work from home arrangements, to look into, because this is very, very important aspect of how we will be also safeguarding the safety and health of our workers. So kanina, in-emphasize ni Sir Nick, no, na yung sa telecommuting law, ang alternative workplace is not only the home. It's just that during the pandemic, work from home ang naging alternative workplace for many of us because nga of the intervention, so that we will be staying at home and reducing our risk of exposure to the coronavirus. So this becomes a very important shift in a sense of what becomes an alternative workplace. Before kasi, when this was being studied nga and was passed into a law, and during the time that the department order as the IRR of this telecommuting law was being discussed, hindi pa gano'n namamayagpag yung home as an alternative workplace dahil may tinitignan ng mga shared spaces. Kung natatandaan ninyo, yung mga ibang tao, shared spaces yung tinitignan nila. Mga internet cafe as part of the alternative workplace. So, having said that, no, ano ba yung gusto nating ipakita rito? Tingnan natin, ano ba yung makikita natin na maaaring magdulot ng mga hindi kagandahan sa ating kaligtasan at kalusugan habang tayo nagtatrabaho sa bahay. Kakaiba-iba ito kapag nagtatrabaho tayo dito sa loob ng regular na workplace. Pangalawa, meron ba tayong pwedeng gawin para mapaganda ito? Because it's one thing to think about what needs to be improved, but it's also important for us to think about ways to improve those conditions. So, in a nutshell, bakit natin ito tinitignan? Kasi kinikilala natin, at ito'y saklaw ng ergonomics as of an important field in occupational safety and health, kinikilala natin na ang pagtatrabaho ng tao kahit na ikaw ay nandito sa loob na regular na trabaho o kaya nasa bahay ay merong mga elementong napaka-importanting tignan. No? So it's not only the computer as a tool that we are looking at when we talk about ergonomics, because in this human-centered scientific discipline, we're trying to find out how we will be able to fit the job to the worker, looking into the different aspects of the work of this person. So paano yon? Kanina si Sir Nick, he talked about certain policies, no, as fundamentals based on the telecommuting law. But apart from that, there are other fundamental laws that would be basis of our policies at work, no. But then again, apart from that, there are evidences that would point to certain organizational arrangements that would need to be taken into consideration by both the worker and the employer. And apart from that, of course, we are looking at the workstation, the physical workstation in a sense, and what the person is doing, and the effect of the physical environment on the work of the worker. So ito yung mga maraming aspeto na tinignan natin lamang na hiniwalay-hiwalay natin yung elemento. Madadaanan natin, hindi lahat ng elemento na ito at Sir Nick already started with the organization, but let me focus on the workstation and the tool being the computer for this morning's webinar. So what is it that we know about computer work and how it affects the worker? So even before the pandemic, there's already a good understanding of how it would affect us as workers, no? And part of that is because of the very strong human-machine interaction, meaning there are many things that we cannot do without using the computer. And that becomes an issue because many of the tasks that we are doing become simplified. And we are essentially looking into doing our work in a limited workspace because we are now being not really forced, but part of the process of doing our computer work. Essentially, we are staying in one space. And that being said, there are certain susceptibilities to physical conditions, such as temperatures, such as ventilation and lighting. And when things are not mitigated or interventions are not put into place to improve this, there are things that may happen. Like you have heard of musculoskeletal aches and pains, no? Masakit ang likod, masakit ang batok, ang balikat, o kaya yung ang kamay or the wrist, no? These are things that may happen. Apart from that, of course, there may be eye discomfort and stress at work as we continue to work with computers. This may not happen if good mitigating factors or there would be some balance, no, in the elements that come into play when we do our work. So ano ba yung challenges na nakikita natin, no, ngayong pandemya? Hindi lang naman sa atin itong pandemya at ang shift to work from home or home-based work na tawag sa mga iba ay nangyayari na. Ano yung nakita nila? This is from Australia. No? Ang isa sa mga nakita nila, there's a possibility that problems may arise because of continuous work with computer, including poor postural habits, no? And they're looking at musculoskeletal disorder. This is one of the findings and have been published in the issues of mental health. Ngayon, sa Pilipinas ba, meron na bang nagtingin rito? Isa sa mga bagong labas na article, and you can download this. This is from Professor Sevaf de la Salle together with Professor Camacho and Tejero of UP Manila. They have also identified ergonomic issues with work-from-home workstations. Nakakita sila na walang armrest, o kaya may armrest pero hindi kapantay ng keyboard. Meron ditong nakikita rin sila na the backs are not being supported even if there's back support for the chair. So there must be an issue why the person is not able to use the back support. So meron rin mga issues on chair height adjustability. Mamaya makikita ninyo mga ehemplo nito at siguro nakaka-relate kayo rito nung tayo'y nag-lockdown ng unang-unang beses at sinabi mag-work from home, meron ba tayong preparedness to do that? So, ito yung mga naging issue dati. Tapos sa mga common reported pains, katulad nung napakita ko nung una, ito yung mga bagay na sa palagay natin ay maaaring dahil sa trabaho at sa workstation sa bahay. In one of the universities in the US, University of Cincinnati, they did a survey amongst their employees. And these are things that they have found out. The potential sources of discomfort, whether it involves the eye or the musculoskeletal system, they have identified the use of laptops. And I'll be explaining this later on. Less desktop use, suboptimal workstations, such as the use of couches, beds, or kitchen countertops as your workstation, chairs without armrests, or sometimes because we are using the non-traditional workstation, sometimes we are forced to use a surface that has hard edges. Yung makanto ang ating table. O kaya, dahil hindi tayo nakakapag-break ng mahusay, yung matagal na pagkaupo at pirming posisyon ng katawan ay maaari magdulot ng problema. So these are quite new articles that have been published lately. These are just 3, but there are certainly some more of these concerns being published by several researchers. And you can also find that when you Google, just put in the important keywords. So, ang center rin ay tinignan rin ito as an issue, and something that we have to address. That's why early on in the pandemic, and because we are also advocating, that we also safeguard our workers while they are working at home. Nagpalabas rin naman ang center ng mga paalala, At kasama na nga rito yung pagtugon sa mga naggagamit ng laptop. At kung makikita nito, may nag-eehersisyo. So this is in a nutshell how we will be dealing with the work from home ergonomics. So, umpisahan ko na kung ano yung mga parameters nating dapat consider. Pero bago ako magpatuloy, let me just emphasize that many of the ergonomic tips that I will be giving you are already existing and based on fundamental guidelines already. So very few would be new, or if things may seem new to you, it's because we are trying now to transition what is in the regular workplace to the work from home workplace. So we will go through several of these parameters, isa-isahin natin. So una, katulad ng sinabi ko, work from home, the wide use of laptops. Swerte siguro kung may desktop kayo, pero yung common problem ng laptop ay very low or too low monitor height. And it becomes an issue. Kung makikita ninyo, yung katawan sa taas, naka-lean siya forward, at saka ang kanyang leeg ay medyo mas nakabaluktot kumpara sa isang tao na nagagamit ng desktop. Isa sa mga tinitingnan natin na nagiging problema ay napakababa ng monitor height. So there are certain solutions to that. Meron tayong mga ginagamit na riser na tinatawag o kaya pagtaas ng height para ma-approximate natin kung ano yung nararapat. Ano ba yung gusto natin sanang ma-achieve? That the position of the monitor will allow you, will be promoting the eye, looking at the top of the monitor at about eye level. So if, for instance, you're sitting and you look at the top of your monitor, it should be the level of your eye already. sitting properly, huh? But when you say sitting properly, you have both feet on the flat on the floor. But if that's not the case, because many of our tables are not adjustable, then you adjust your chair so that you are able to achieve this. And this is very difficult to achieve when you use your laptop without any other accessories. No? So one of the things that we're looking at would be to elevate the level, no, of the monitor for laptops. And that's another riser available now in the market. This is from the previous pictures are ours, no, but I'll be pointing you to the source of pictures that are not the centers. No? So this is from the Stanford University, no? And it's also looking into the same issue of the use of laptop and low monitor height. Isa pa sa mga solusyon dito ay yung pagdadak ng inyong laptop sa isang docking station and connecting it to a bigger monitor. So in a sense, you are simulating the conditions of a desktop. So this is something that is that can be done. This is your external monitor. This is your it becomes now your primary. Your CPU is of course with your laptop and the use of external keyboard and mouse. So it becomes better in terms of position of the body, and you would see that it is approximating the regular workstation using a desktop. Isa pa, no, na dapat nating intindihin, at ito rin isa sa mga challenges in workplaces, no, or in workstations at home, is that we have limited space, no. So ano yung nangyayari? Sometimes we put the monitor or our primary computer to one side, and then we are twisting our head, no, or our body. And this is something that we would like you to improve so that you don't need to twist your body. And that's when you place the monitor directly in front of you. So this is quite simple, but then again, it becomes a challenge when we're talking about limited workstations space. Isa pa, ang sabi natin lagi, monitor should not be back to or facing a window that has no brightness control. Hindi naman natin masasabi sa araw na wag kang wag kang lumabas o kaya wag kang magpaliwanag. So we need to, in a sense, no, mitigate that brightness. And we're looking at shades or drapes, but not only that, because when you look at the bottom slide, no, compare it with the slide above, no, there is a repositioning of your computer to one side, no, so that it's not going to produce direct glare or reflected glare. Ito yung mga ehemplo ng ginawa ng actual work from home conditions. Dahil nahihirapan siya dito sa kadiwang larawan, no, yung use of laptop. Dahil nahihirapan siyang magkontrola, gumamit siya ng drapes, no, or cortina. Ganon rin dito sa kanan, na kung saan makikita nyo yung bintana na malapit doon sa kanyang computer ay kanyang nilagyan ng cortina para makontrolan niya yung pagpasok ng ilaw. Ano pa yung sana gusto natin, alalahanin natin, at ito'y binibigay na rin natin sa mga regular workplaces na gumagamit ng computer. Avoid viewing distances that are too long. Anong ibig sabihin? Napakalayo ng monitor mo, ang mangyayari, ikaw naman ay magli-lean forward. O kaya masyadong malapit sa mata natin yung computer na kung saan ang nangyayari ay nahihirapan naman ng ating mga mata. Kaya ang sinasabi natin, sana ay at an arm's length ang ating ginagawa para ang ating katawan ay hindi ganun masyadong napepwersa, katulad din ng ating mata na hindi masyadong magtatrabaho. So these are tips for you to avoid eye strain and awkward posture. So this is just an example, no? This is the regular workstation. So at an arm's length, and then if you see this person, of course, this is not the only issue. That's why the person is leaning forward. But then again, the endpoint is the monitor is far and the person cannot come near the workstation. That's why she needed to lean forward. So, ayaw natin makikita yung isang tao na gumagamit ng maganda naman na silya na hindi niya ginagamit yung backrest. Kasi pagka hindi niya ginagamit yun, mag-isip tayo kung bakit. Meron bang humahadlang para isang tao ay mag-lean or maggamit ng back support? Okay, the issue of the laptop. We would always recommend that external keyboard and mouse be used to optimize adjustability. And this is an old example, and this is a guideline issued by the International Ergonomics Association, which I was part of in 2000, when we issued the ergonomic guidelines for using notebook personal computers. That's how we called it before. But it's essentially the laptop, no? And what is it that we have seen, no? When we use the laptop, you look at the monitor, you look at the CPU and the keyboard, even the pointing device. These are all in one equipment or in one machine that has very, very little leeway for us to customize or to adjust. So if, for instance, you would like to increase the height of the monitor, the keyboard would follow, right? And if, for instance, we would like to lower the keyboard naman, because when you raise up the monitor, the keyboard would follow, then of course, the monitor would also follow. In a sense, there is very, very limited possibility for customization. And in ergonomics, being able to adjust your workstation is very, very important based on the requirements of the person being used. So remember the definition I gave you with ergonomics, no, at the beginning. It's a human-centered science. So ibig sabihin, we take into consideration the needs of the person so that we are able to fit, no, yung kanyang trabaho sa tao. So makikita ninyo, ang isa sa pinaka-common natin nakikita ay merong mouse. Pero we stop at using the mouse, an external mouse. And sometimes, no, or most of the time, we don't employ the use of an external keyboard. So these are things that we hope you will be able to use when you work from home using the laptop. So this is what I was talking about: the monitor, the CPU, the keyboard, and even the trackpad. No? But when you look at a regular workstation, the monitor can be adjusted separate from the keyboard and even the mouse. The CPU is there on one side so that when you try to customize your workstation, no, pwede mo silang ayusing hiwa-hiwalay. So yun ang ating gustong i-simulate sa pagsabi namin na sana meron kang external mouse at meron kang external keyboard para masisimulate natin kung paano natin inaayos ang desktop. Okay, so kaya ang isa natin sinasabi, detach sana sa computer monitor ang keyboard. Matagal na itong sinasabi at ito'y naman nagiging problema sa laptop. That's why, again, external keyboard is very, very important. Ano pa, kapag masyadong mataas naman ang ating keyboard, ayaw natin nakakakita ng pag-splay ng ating elbow, no? Kung saan palabas, no, ang position niya. Imbes na palapit sa katawan, palayo sa katawan. At ito yung nakikita namin kasi nga, ang gusto ng mga iba, tataas yung monitor height ng laptop, walang keyboard. So, anong nangyayari? Yung daliri mo, umaakyat rin. At daliri mo umaakyat, yung iyong elbow rin ay sumasama. Siyempre naman, kasama rin ang shoulder. Ano pa yung magiging problema sa mga nakikita natin? No? Dahil maliit ang ating workstation, halos ang mga kamay natin ang nandoon na sa dulo ng table. And this is one of the findings of the University of Cincinnati. I was introducing that to you earlier. I introduced that to you earlier. And it's not only, it's not an uncommon finding. This is a common finding in work from home situations wherein your work area is a bit small or not as big or not as large as when you're doing regular work in your offices. So kung may pagkakataon, sana itulak natin papasok yung keyboard para mabigyan ng espasyo ang ating kamay at saka ang ating wrist and forearm. The problem now is if, for instance, your workstations at home would have sharp edge here, what can we do? Pwede naman natin yan lagyan ng soft material so that that sharp edge will not cut through your forearm or wrist. Ano pa? When we use the mouse, kasi di ba sabi natin, ang premise natin, kahit na laptop ka, may external mouse ka. Ang ating sinasabi, sana ang paggamit natin ay tama, na kung saan laging gross movement, no? Gusto natin, ito ay sumasabay ang wrist, ang hand sa forearm na pag-move, no? So we hope we don't do this, no? Na kung saan may pagbaluktot ng wrist dahil ito ay maaaring maging sanhi ng pagkasakit sa kamay, no? So pains in the wrist area. Another concern is in some workplaces, particularly in the early 90s, no, when you had very small tiered workstation, ano ibig sabihin, na pataas siya, no? Pero makipot siya, na kung saan wala halos spasyo para sa mouse. Nakita na siguro ninyo ito. I'll show you a picture later. Na kung saan ibang level ang mouse doon sa keyboard, no? Ang sinasabi natin, sana yung mouse ay as close as possible to the center of your body. And that you would be achieving if your mouse is adjacent or next to your keyboard. Okay, having given some tips regarding monitor placement, keyboard, and mouse, punta naman tayo sa chair. Ito ang isa sa malaking challenge rin sa work from home. Kayo ba ay gumagamit pa ng monoblock kapag kayo ay nasa bahay? Kayo ba ay nakaupo sa sopa? Kayo ba ay nakaupo sa kama? So may mga issues tayo sa adjustability, sa height range, no? Dahil nga sabi natin, in customizing or adjustability, adjusting the workstation, there must be a range in the height that may be afforded to you by your chair, the backrest, the seat depth, and stability. Okay, ito yung isa sa ating sinasabi, no? Sana stable ang chair mo kapag sana yung paa niya, di ba? Kung nabuhay na kayo ng mga 80s and 90s, makakakita pa kayo ng 4 na yan. Pero ngayon, wala na kayo makikita niyan, di ba? Kaya siya nagkaganyan dahil stable siya. If you're interested in downloading this one, you can get it from the OSHA website, no? The right picture is picture from one of our posters, no? And it also shows you the same situation wherein there's back support, the chair is stable, there's adjustability, and when you look at the body, no, it is supported. The difference between the left and the right would be the armrest. So if, for instance, you would be buying chairs with armrest, I hope also that the armrest height, no, and even display of the armrest would be adjustable, because it becomes limiting as well if it's not. But then again, when you look at the totality of this is how the regular workstation should look like. And if we're talking about the regular workstation, I hope the laptop workstation would be as such, but then again, becomes an issue, again, as I've mentioned, because of the availability of a good chair or a good workstation. So here are some examples of actual workstation, no? Ito rin, kapag nakita mo ito, at tinanong ko yung taong gumagamit nito, pagka ba nakaupo ka, kaya nakaroon ng cushion, masyadong mataas yung monitor height, kasi sabi natin, the eye level sana siya, no, kapag nakaupo tayo. And true enough, that's what he said. He said that he needed to use a cushion so that it would give some more height to the chair. That's why, and the objective is for the person to achieve this position, di ba? Para ang eye height natin ay makikita natin yung tuktok ng ating monitor. Ito naman sa kanan, no? May difficulty ito kasi yung chair niya naubos ay ito na yung pinakamataas na position niya, no? Pagka nakaupo siya, nakatingin pa rin siya pataas. Kaya ang isa ring solution niya, naglagay, pero dito ang ginagamit niya 2 unan. So, ganun yung differences in our heights, no? And that should be obvious to everybody because our sitting heights are not the same. And if you're looking about furniture that would have limited height adjustability, there must be something that we should do. It's either we lower the table, we elevate ourselves some more by using cushion. But ultimately, what's the parameter that we should be looking at? Ang isa sa mga inaayos natin ay yung mata natin at ang ating mga braso. Isa ito sa mga nakikita natin madalas na paggamit ng monoblock. Kasi wala naman tayong ready na silya. Hindi naman basta-basta makakabili rin naman ng computer chair. Meron rin siyang gastos. Ito yung sinasabi ko nung mga unang panahon na common pa rin naman ngayon, pero ito yung tiered wherein there's very limited space for your keyboard and your mouse. Sometimes they would be at different levels. And essentially what we are trying to promote is good posture and at the same time some amount of adjustability as well. So what can we do if a person is using a monoblock? So ito ay from the, Harvard University. Ang kanilang mga quick fix is rolled towel, that you can use to support your lower back because that's very important. This curvature is something that we are trying to preserve when we sit down. And of course, to add some height because the table height is quite high, ay umupo siya sa unan. Ngayon, nung tinaas niya yung silya niya, tinaas niya yung sarili niya, magkakaroon ng problema syempre dahil hindi ka na makakatapak sa iyong floor. Ang ginawa nila, merong tungtungan to bridge that gap. And that is essentially your footstool. So what again are we trying to do here? It's trying to simulate good working conditions using the computer, using the fundamental knowledge that we have about good computer workstation design. In the same manner, this is a bit better when we talk about the chair, So ito yung mga ehemplo. Saan ba tayo kukuha ng ganitong chair? Lagi pa tayong bibili. Tignan natin kung ano natin pwedeng i-adjust muna. Ano pa yung dapat natin tinitignan? Yung kung sakasakaling kukuha kayo ng upuan, ang isa sa mga tinitingnan rin natin ay yung seat depth. Yung haba ng inuupuan ninyo. Kasi kapag masyado siyang maikli, hindi siya magbibigay ng suporta. Kapag masyado siyang mahaba, magkakaroon rin naman siya ng problema dito sa ating binte. Dahil wala na siyang yung paggalaw na tama. So ang tinitingnan natin, pagka kayo ay nakasandal sa upuan, you feel the back of your knee and try to find out if there's a small gap that would fit 2 to 3 fingers, and that would be okay when you talk about the depth of the seat. Otherwise, kapag ganito, ano yung magiging position natin? Halos itataas natin, di ba? Yung ating binte, yung legs natin. I-move forward natin ito. Or sometimes we have a tendency to lean forward because nga, this is going to start bothering us. However, in this case, there's poor support for the lower limb. These are just pictures of what we need to think about when we're using armrests. Armrests are very good, Kasi kaya nga siya sinabing armrest para matulungan ka sa pagpapahinga at pagsuporta ng katawan. Because when you're doing a lot of computer work, we would want the whole body to be supported adequately. But then again, if it's going to produce some problems, then magkakaroon tayo ng hindi kagandahang reaction ng katawan. So this is relaxed, this is elevated. This is the third one on the right. I hope you can see my pointer. Can you see my pointer, Cha?
Opo.
Okay. So para lang makita nila, So ito, nakita nyo naka-splay yung elbows niya, di ba? Kumpara natin dito, ito'y relax at malapit sa katawan. So kapag gagamit kayo at magtitingin kayo ng upuan, isa yan sa mga palatandaan kung ito'y naangkop sa inyo o hindi. Work area considerations. Now, this becomes more challenging. Ang sinasabi nga dahil maraming mga aspeto na maaaring maka-distract or maka-interrupt ng ating trabaho at isa pa, para sa pagtingin natin ng boundaries ng trabaho at hindi trabaho, lalong-lalo na nasa bahay tayo, because that becomes now an issue, di ba? How do we say you're at work and later on you're not working at all? Is when you try to dedicate a work area separate from work ang eating area. And it becomes an issue for many because the only available space we have sometimes is a dining table. So it is a challenge. Ano pa? Use tables with appropriate dimension. Sabi nga, sana mag-fit lahat ang ating kailangan at hindi tayo tumitingin sa isang side, no, without twisting the body, and then adequate leg room. This is from Stanford University again. No? I showed the one on the right earlier, but this is an example of what I hope you would not be doing, no, is using your bed as your workstation. Or using something that you are not fit to use at all, no? Hindi magkasya. Dahil kapag matagal ka nagtatrabaho na ganito ang iyong itsura, magkakaroon ka ng pananakit ng katawan. Kaya nga, kung makikita nyo yung litrato sa taas, ang sabi natin, sana magkasya lahat ng gamit, no? Anong ginawa niya? Naglagay pa siya ng isang table para doon yung iba niyang gamit. So, na-supplement niya yung kanyang primary workstation with another workstation to fit some of the things that he would be doing. At the same manner, no? When you're looking at the picture below, this is a stock picture, no? I got this from the website of ABS-CBN. It's a business website nila when they did an article on work from home setups. So if you Google it, you can get it, no? Kung makikita ninyo, ano ba itong table na ito? Mukha siyang dining table, di ba? Na ginawa niya na workstation. Ano pa yung gusto natin maintindihan? Na sana yung awkward posture or hindi tamang posture ay limitahan natin ang assume. So we don't want awkward static posture because this may lead to fatigue. What are we trying to promote? We would like to promote frequent changes in posture as an important mitigating factor or mitigating to mitigate the risks of staticness, because once we start using the computer, there would inevitably some amount of staticness in what we are doing, in what we the body will be assuming, and it's inevitable. Ang ibig sabihin, kasi nakapirme ka, nakaupo, may pagka-staticness na rin doon. So kapag ang pagkakaupo na pirme ay isa sa mga bagay na gusto nating iwasan na tuloy-tuloy yung ginagawa, gagawin natin yung opposite nito, di ba? So sana nakakagalaw tayo, sana nakakatayo tayo. Kung may pagkakataon na kung saan merong posture na hindi maganda, ayusin natin yung workstation so that we are able to promote a position. Bakit ba natin sinabi na ang monitor dapat nasa harap natin at hindi nasa side natin para ang pagtingin natin ay diretso, no? At bakit natin sinasabi na sana wag masyadong mababa ang monitor at wag masyadong mataas dahil gusto natin pangalagaan ang ating leeg. Bakit nga ba sinabi natin na ang armrest sana ay tama para hindi tumaas ang ating balikat o kaya ang elbows natin ay hindi nakasplay dahil malayo siya sa katawan natin at hindi siya suportado. Yun ang mga maaring magdulot ng pananakit ng katawan. So ano yung mga pwede nating isipin? Unang-una, keep all of your limbs as close as possible to the middle. So every time that it goes out of the middle, it may produce some problem. Second, staticness can lead to fatigue. So if that's the case, then we have to change the position of our body frequently. And it only becomes it becomes conscious, no, for us, or intentional for us to change our body position if we understand, no, that it is important. Because when we're doing computer work, sometimes we are so concentrated on what we're doing, we forget everything else, no? So sana magkakaroon ng ganong pagpapaalala sa bawat isa na importante ang pagpalit-palit ng posisyon ng katawan. This is not work from home. These are just pictures from regular workstation. What was I trying to say when I said if a part of your body is away from the middle of the body, it becomes an issue. Halimbawa, ito po, sa taas na mataas yung malayo pala So the mouse is far from the body, the person cannot go near the workstation. Then this part of the body, which is quite far from the middle of the body and is unsupported, there may be some issues later on. Or if we keep on raising our arms to do something, it becomes regular, frequent, and sometimes the duration of this posture is long, then it becomes an issue later on. So pagka nakakita tayo ng malayo sa middle ng katawan, yan ang isa sa mga bigyan natin ng pansin at ibalik natin siya na malapit sa katawan. Ito yung ibig ko sabihin. Keep it as close as possible to the middle of the body. So the arms, no, are next to the torso. The arms, the lower arms are close to the middle of the body. So this is what we would like sana for us to see when we do work from home. So frequent changes. Isa pa, alternate between standing and sitting. I think this is more possible when we're doing work from home and we are off video, no? Unless there's really a need for us to key in often, then this is something that we can do. We can change body positions. The one on the left and the upper, the topmost are examples in regular workstation. But look at the workstation below. This is simulating the sit-stand situation. Now, of course, no, ito ang lagi kong sinasabi. Sit-stand opportunities may be available to us when we work from home, but be mindful of safety concerns. Kasi baka yung mga kordon ninyo ay magkakaroon naman kayo ng tripping issue or kaya yung iyong laptop naman ay babaksak. So ayaw naman natin yun, no? Makakasira tayo at magkakaroon. So the one below is not mine. This is from Duke University. And the one on top is a stock picture. So ano pa? Ang sabi nga natin, no? Positioning is very important when we do lighting. Positioning. Kaya ayaw natin na nakaharap ka sa bintana, ayaw natin na sa likod ang bintana mo dahil magkakaroon ng glare sa ating monitor at ito'y tatama sa mata natin. Ano pa yung tinitingnan natin? Ito'y napaka-importante from work from home situation. Ano? Minsan maingay, no? May aso, may bata, may nagtitinda, merong tricycle. So these are things that may affect our work, not because it may injure our ears, because the noise levels will not be that high. But then again, when you talk about efficiency and productivity, this may be very important issues, no? When we designate or we choose a designated area for us to work in. Work habits. Lagi rin namin sanang pinapaalala na huwag tuloy-tuloy ang trabaho, no? Sana nagkakaroon kayo ng break at conscious break sana ito na 1 to 2 hours or even less, no? You change your position, you do tasks away from the computer, and in between this, probably every 30 minutes, every hour or 2 hours, you can take micro breaks. And one example of micro break is the 20-20-20 rule. Sana narinig na ninyo ito, pero ang ehemplo lamang na ito ay every 20 minutes, tumingin ka 20 feet in front of you or malayo sa'yo for 20 seconds. It's just a short micro break, but it becomes very important, no, for the eyes. But then again, for your body also, you stop working, stop using the same muscle group, and if for instance you change your position, then it reminds your body, no, na mayroon ka palang ibang muscle na gagamitin para hindi naman napapagod lagi yung patuloy mong ginagamit habang nagko-computer. We have this in our website yata. Tama ba? I got this from our Facebook. And this was lifted from the department circular, I suppose. Tama ba, DJ? No, because this is part of the department circular for call centers and the exercises that you can do while working at home as well. Anong pinapakita rito? Gumalaw-galaw, no? Yun ang napaka-importante. Gumalaw-galaw at ang importante, gagalawin ninyo yung parte ng katawan na naging pirme habang nagtatrabaho kayo. sa computer, because computer work inevitably will result in some amount of fixated posture. That fixated posture should be converted into something that is dynamic. And in doing so, no, you would produce less adverse effects. So you can download this from our call center, tama no? Call center brochure. Para makita ninyo kung ano yung pwede ninyong gawin habang nakaupo. Mga simpleng ehersisyo, pero ehersisyo lang ba ang kasagutan doon? Hindi. Katulad ng sinabi ko, di ba? Ang pagkalaw ng katawan ay maaaring mangyari kapag meron tayong ginagawa na trabaho away from the computer. The mere fact that you're standing away from the workstation, no, is already using other muscle groups. So, having said that and having shown you some of the things that we need to watch out for, of course, our desire is also for us to monitor if it's happening and what can we do about it. Monitoring of the workstation in the homes should not be such a challenge for us if, for instance, we put in some system on how this is going to be monitored. It can be designed by the company, monitoring done by the focal OSH personnel, short of going to your workplace or your homes, no? You can devise a way so that you can see what's happening when they're working. And one of which, of course, is when you talk siguro, and then the person on the other side can start showing the workstation. Or in our case, I started collecting pictures, no, ng mga nagwo-work from home situation para makita natin kung ano nangyayari. Apart from that is, of course, empowering the workers. No? The employee should also know how to assess their workstations, and it becomes participative in a way, because right now, if we're working from home, each individual is considered as a discrete workstation, hindi ba? And these workstations are different from one another. It's different when, for instance, you're in a regular workstation. You can do sampling because if the design is also more or less the same, then you can have an idea, no, of the risk factors because of the similarity in the design of the workstation. But then again, when we're working at home, there's discrete workstations for every household, so that it's important also for us to teach our workers and employees how to assess their own workstations. An example is a self-assessment tool. This was developed by the Japan NIOSH, no? Japan National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, and it gives you the manga type of looking into your workstation. So, medyo madali siyang masundan kung manga type siya. You can download the whole document from the website of the JNIOSH. Sa center, meron rin kaming dinevise as a checklist type na kung saan pwede nating i-assess discretely yung furniture, at apart from that, the work habits, the work practices, and certain policies in the company. And we have used this for regular workstations and can be applicable for work from home work situations using computers. So here you can see that we have description of what a good chair is, what the description of adjustable seat height, description of what a backrest is, and certainly issues on the seat pan, armrest, and footrest. So, meron kaming ganito. Isa sa pwede ninyong gamitin, at katulad ng sinabi ko kanina, the exercises are part of the brochure for call centers. No? Also at the back are questions which may be part of your risk assessment that you can also use, because the issues addressed there quite comprehensively is the issue with the use of computers. So these are examples of the checklist type that we use when you look at the use of the mouse and the choice of the mouse. Okay. So, balik na naman tayo doon sa pinag-umpisahan natin. Work from home, handa na ba tayo? So sinabi nga natin, pandemya, we're into how many years already into the pandemic? So, August, 1 year, 6 months na ba tayo? O 1 year, almost 1 year and 6 months. And I hope the work from home situation for many of us have improved already. But then again, it's never too late to change, no? Whatever it is that we're doing in the work, in our home, so that this also can promote our safety, health, and well-being. Now, questions regarding what are the things I said only applicable here in the Philippines? No, if you go to other work sites, websites, you would be seeing also similar tips when you're working from home. No, the ergonomic tips from the Pittsburgh University would essentially cover, no, the fundamentals, which I have mentioned also. Even ergonomists have recognized that the importance of separate keyboard and mouse for a long time already, particularly in these conditions wherein we're working from home, and the only thing available to us are laptops. Remember, hindi naman ganun kamura ang desktop, ano? Pero ganun pa rin ang tanong natin, no? Readiness to work from home beyond the pandemic. Una-una, computer, desktop versus laptop. If we're going to proceed, no, with working from home, and we see that a desktop is better than a laptop, it's something that we are ready to use and ready to have in our homes. Better chair, better table, use of mouse, use of keyboard. So essentially, when we were locked down and the only available thing for us are laptops, and the laptops we use as we have as tool for temporary work when we're moving around, no? Because it's a mobile device. That's the intention of the laptop. It's something that we can use temporarily and should not have been designed so that this can mean that we will be using it permanently in our regular workstations. But then again, because of the situation that we were faced with, it became now our regular workstation when we worked from home. So yun pa rin ang tanong, napakamahal ba ng mouse? Napakamahal ba ng keyboard? Kaya ba natin to? At babalik na naman tayo doon sa pinag-usapan ng umpisa na prinisinta ni Sir Nick. Ito yung mga bagay na pag-iisipan natin. Ano? Work policies including work hours. When to connect and when to disconnect. That's very, very important as we try to define boundaries between work and non-work. And that's part of work-life balance, right? Performance metrics, as also mentioned earlier, code of conduct and norms, communication within the organization, data privacy concern, because these are continuing issues as we work from home. Internet connectivity, napakalaking challenge sa Pilipinas. Yung aking internet ay sa palagay ko maganda na, pero nung Sabado nagwe-webinar kami, bigla ako nag-freeze, hindi ko marinig yung mga kasamahan ko. Sabi ko, umulan lang, nawala na siya. Kaya isang issue pa rin yan. Preparedness of individual for home-based IT intensive tasks. Again, portability of what we're doing in our workplaces, in our regular workplace, and then trying to bring it home. Is it really portable? Mako-convert mo ba siya talaga na work from home situation? Or kapag ginawa mo yun, nagkakaroon ng intensive use of computer, are we ready for that? Because many people may not be. So that should be part of the considerations. Ano pa? Quick fixes. Do we really just look at quick fixes? I talked about rolling the towel, putting it at the back so that it becomes our lumbar support. Quick fixes, can we convert this into something that is more permanent and something more tenable, no? Access to OSH services when we work from home. The issue of sedentary work, no? Lagi ka nakaupo, tapos kapag nag-off camera, higa ka pa. Change naman of posture yun, di ba? Pero sedentary pa rin. So it becomes something that we have also to consider. Stress at work confounded by stress because of COVID. Ngayon, nag-iba na naman ang variant na ating kinokonsidera, no? Meron pa rin sa pagtingin noon as we brace ourselves for the fourth lockdown since the start of the pandemic. Still is an issue. The issue of isolation, which is mentioned in the telecommuting law as well as the department order. But then again, how do we manage this? As we are all separate, even if we see one another virtually, yet socially we are still distanced from one another. And how do we elevate OSH concerns to our OSH focal? These are the things that we have to consider as well when we have or when we institute work from home conditions. So ito nga, yung kanina ko sinasabi, no, work-life balance or conflict, blurred boundaries, multitasking, no? Kapag nasa bahay ka, kapag mayroon kang inaalagaan, no, habang nagtatrabaho ka, napapersa ka mag-alaga. Meron akong ina-attendan minsan webinar, sabi nung facilitator, break na muna tayo kasi magluluto pa ako. So it's a reality when we're at home because when we're in the workplace, probably there would be more opportunities being offered to us or available to us when we talk about meals. But then again, when you're working from home, the meal portion becomes still a task that need to be addressed but by the worker as well. No? So, meron na bang mga ehemplo naman na mga good practices? Marami na, no? Hindi lamang sa pribadong sektor, kundi sa gobyerno pa rin, no? Merong mga ahensya nagbibigay ng laptop o nagpapahiram, kasama noon, nagbibigay at nagpapahiram ng headset na external mouse na provided to workers. Some companies or agencies sometimes also accede to requests from their workers for the use of their own external keyboard, no, doon sa opisina nila kung hindi sila mabibilan ng bago or additional. Because if you're talking about a hybrid situation, no, meron ka ng work from home, meron ka pang work from the regular office. Ang tanong, paano natin to isusustain pareho? Dalawa ba yung bibili natin? So may mga ibang opisina na nagpapahiram. Iuwi mo yung keyboard mo, iuwi mo yung mouse mo, pero pagka papasok ka, dadalhin mo pa rin. Meron mga iba na pati yung kanilang mga monitor so that they are able to dock their laptops, pinapahiram rin. These are examples, no, of some practices. Ano pa yung mga ibang practices? Support for internet connectivity. Of course, you have to be mindful about what is minimum in the telecommuting law, di ba? And these are some practices that would assist our workers, no, who are working from home. Support for internet connectivity, access to training are being provided to them. There are virtual social activities. Okay, this is important when you talk about the issue of isolation as we all work from home. And of course, this is important, the online safety and health briefings that we should be also disseminating to our workers, not only how, dapat alam nila, di ba, kung paano gumamit ng computer, pero apart from that, other issues surrounding their work as well as their community, particularly in these times of the pandemic. So, as we end this presentation, I was able to talk about the workstation and the tool, no, your computer. I have not dealt so much with the physical environment nor the task, but Sir Nick mentioned things about the organization. So, meron pa tayong mga hindi pa natin masyadong na-discuss, and I hope you would take the time to look into this on your own later on. So, are there safeguards for us? No? May mga safeguards naman sa taong gobyerno, may occupational safety and health standards for the public sector that would also set or institutionalize, no, yung pagtingin ng safety and health ng mga tao kahit na nasa bahay sila, no, or work from home. May mental health programs sinasabi sa public sector that should be extended even if you're working from home. And there are a series of COVID-19 related CSC issuances that would also support alternative work schedule, no, sa gobyerno. And of course, the law, the Fundamental Law on Safety and Health, which is 11058, and the IRR, which is 198, the 198-18, which looks into duties and responsibilities, occupational safety and health programs based on risk. And part of that, I hope you would take to heart to look into the risk when we're working at home, because as I have said, if you allow workers, no, to work at home, it becomes a discrete workstation already, or a discrete workplace. And that, I hope, would also be part of the conditions being monitored by the company. And of course, OSH personnel skilled and competent to do the monitoring. So, meron na tayong mga kondisyon na pwede natin pagtuunan ng pansin. Meron na rin tayong mga kondisyon na paano natin mai-improve kung ito yung nag-exist sa ating workstation. And I hope this is something that we all would look into, because when we empower our workers or our employees to self-report after they have been trained, after they have been oriented on what to look at, it becomes a very important and substantial input for the occupational safety and health point person in order to come up with programs. And I hope this is how we will be looking at work from home, not only because it becomes now an alternative work style for everybody. But then again, I hope should be taken into context also that we need to monitor this and we need conditions to improve the workstation. So maraming salamat po sa inyong attention. At bago ako matapos, gusto ko lamang pasalamatan ang lahat na nagpahiram ng mga larawan ng kanilang workstations para sa ating webinar ngayon. So thank you very much and good morning.
Salamat po, Doc Bia, sa very detailed discussion about ergonomics while working from home. We now proceed with our open forum. Sir Nick, meron ka pa po ba?
Yes, ma'am. Dito
Ayan.
pa ako. Nakikinig ako dito ko lang.
Yes. So may mga few questions lang naman po tayo for Doc Bia and Sir Nick po. Proceed na po tayo sa first question. This is from Mr. Joel A. Mayers. Isa po siyang Facebook live viewer. Ask ko po, this is for Sir Nick po. Technical guy po ako sa company. Pwede po ba ako mag-demand or request na mabigyan ako ng task for work from home? Sabi kasi before, wala daw ganun na setup pero naglabas ng memo sa office na meron po palang ganun. Pwede ba ireklamo ang HR namin?
So sagutin ko yan. Again, babalik tayo doon na ang pag-implement or pag-adapt ng telecommuting ay nakaangkla po yan sa voluntariness, mutual consent. So kahit gustuin mo man yan, kung ayaw ng company, hindi pwede yan. So pakiusap na lang siguro, pakiusap kung baka pwede. So pakiusapan kasi hindi po pwede. Either parties cannot adapt telecommuting kung ayaw ng isa. So although telecommuting, pwede naman na ibang flexible work arrangement. Necessarily, ito specific lang doon sa batas. But under existing regulations, pwede naman po yung work from home. Pero basically, naka-anchored pa rin po yan. Similarly with telecommuting na may voluntariness, may mutual consent. So neither parties cannot insist or cannot require the other to do the same.
Thank you po, Sir Nick. Next question po, another question po from one of our viewers in Facebook po. This is from Mr. John Matore. Hello po, I'm from a certification company. When quarantine starts po, lahat po kami naka-remote type of work. Then the company do not allow overtime requests compared to face-to-face. Ask ko lang po kung we have the right to take an overtime work in a remote setup. Ang nangyayari po kasi, nagiging unpaid overtime na lang po given na dedicated and committed kami to do our respective tasks.
Okay, so yan, again, as I mentioned about my fair treatment. So kung 8 hours din yan. So kung kung ilang oras yung trabaho, ganun din po yan. Kung nag-exceed sa 8 hours, dapat may corresponding overtime yan. So klaruhin lang po, ano po ba yan? Output pa ba yan or may oras yan? So kaya nga po, doon sa arrangement, kinaklaro yan kung may time in, may time out, may break ba yan. So klaruhin lang po muna, pag-usap. Kung hindi po doon, itatago yung ebidensya na talagang nag-overtime. At saka ang overtime lang po, hindi automatic yan. There should be a consent from the immediate supervisor. Kung hindi ka inalaw, huwag ka trabaho. Hindi ka pwedeng, yan ay libre yan. Kung hindi ka allowed to work overtime. So may permission yan.
Next question po for Doc Bia naman po. From Mr. Edwin Mirafelix. Do the sickness acquired from ergonomics acknowledged by PhilHealth or SSS such as carpal tunnel syndrome? Will they pay the lost workdays or therapy?
Sa batas po natin sa Employees Compensation Program, may pagkilala po na ng musculoskeletal disorders that can be produced by work. So they even have set up a criteria and some of the risk factors have been listed down. What's very important is for us to look into conditions of work. Yun po ang pinaka-importante, because when you talk about work-relatedness, it's not only the disease we're looking at, but also the type of exposure that has led to the disease. And the attribution for workplace factors is very, very important. So may role ang safety and health focal people dito para ma-document. Kasi hindi pwede yung job description lang, mag-guess na nila kung ano yung ginawa ng tao. Halimbawa, sa bawat parte ng katawan, merong mga risk factors na tinatawag. Kapag sa likod, isa sa pinaka-importanting risk factor ron ay yung pagbubuhat ng mabigat. So if for instance, that can be documented, then it becomes an input to the evidence that will be that the decision will be based upon. So balik ako doon sa tanong, ito ba'y tinitignan na pwedeng compensable? Opo. Sa ating Employees Compensation Program, kasama po ang musculoskeletal disorders sa mga pwedeng mabigyan ng benepisyo. Dapat ito'y nakaangkla kung anong ginagawa niya sa trabaho. Salamat.
Another question po for Doc Bia. Meron po bang certain threshold para ma-consider na ergonomic hazard na po ang posture or ginagawa ng isang worker?
Okay, ganda ng tanong na yon, kasi hindi to ang musculoskeletal disorders ay hindi parang may threshold limit value na kung saan kapag ito ay nalampasan, sigurado ka magkakasakit o mas mataas ang posibilidad na magkakasakit. Kung natatandaan ninyo, yung aking pinakita na mga bilog-bilog kanina. So, ang postura ng katawan ay isa lamang sa mga nagiging response ng tao doon sa mga iba't ibang kondisyon sa trabaho. Kaya nga kung susuriin natin at hahatiin natin ang mga risk factors na maaaring magdulot ng musculoskeletal disorders, depende ito sa parte ng katawan. Repetitiveness is one, staticness is another, forceful exertion is another, vibration depending on which part of the body the body is being exposed to, whether it is sa hand or whole body vibration. These are risk factors at work that can lead to musculoskeletal disorder. But again, we have to take into consideration, ano yun? Duration of work, lalong-lalo na duration of continuous work as an important factor that may push a person to develop or push the disease to accelerate. No? So ang sagot ko roon, hindi ganong kadaling masabi na may threshold. Pero may batayan tayo. Halimbawa, sa postura ng katawan, habang lumalayo sa gitna ng katawan, I think I mentioned this earlier, di ba? Keep the parts of your body as close as possible to the center. Because once it goes out, halimbawa, nakikita ba ninyo ako? No? Habang lumalayo sa parte ng sa gitna ng katawan natin, ang parte ng katawan, ito ay nakakaroon ng isang risk na siya. So sir, merong akong pwedeng ipresenta sa inyo na isang review on musculoskeletal disorders that would discreetly look into the risk factors I mentioned. But then again, please always keep in mind that the duration, not only within the day duration, but also the duration in terms of how many days, weeks, months, or years a person is being exposed to this would also increase the possibility of musculoskeletal disorder. So nasagot ko ba? Walang diretsong sagot, pero ang sinasabi ko, titignan nyo risk factors at iba pang elemento ng trabaho. Salamat.
For Sir Nick naman po ulit, from Sir Rene Justo, under the Telecommuting Act, how will we set the boundaries for possible work-related issues?
Pakiulit po.
Under the Telecommuting Act, how will we set the boundaries for possible work-related issues?
Yun po, dapat importante po yun may programa. So magkaya nga po naka-anchor dyan sa voluntary agreement. So doon po sa batas, dapat meron tayong to effectively implement the telecommuting program, the employer and employee shall adhere to a policy agreement. Kaya nga po, meron tayong mga nilagay na parameters, yung eligibility, dinidiscuss ko, yung applicability ng code of conduct. Dapat yun, nakaline doon, specifics yun. Napoporsi yung mga concerns, like di ba yung workstations, use of equipment, code of conduct, conditions of employment. Dapat pinag-uusapan yan kung hindi na factor in yan doon, hindi na pag-usapan, naging ano, di ba? Meron po naman yung mechanism, administration, di ba dapat pag-usapan ng both parties how to resolve the differences or issues. Kung hindi po maayos within the company based on the grievance mechanism, pupunta po sila sa DOLE para po ma-assist how to resolve the issues or differences. So, yan po yung mechanism natin.
Another question po for Sir Nick. Regarding with the report on the adoption of work arrangement that will be submitted to DOLE, I would like to verify po, quarterly summary, ipapasa po yun ng HR po or safety officer?
Hindi sa amin po yun. It is requirement from the regional office doon sa amin. Sa inyo po, pag nag-implement kayo, automatically, isubmit nyo po yan. Meron po kaming nidadapt na general na yung KRS na bago ngayon, yung online. Lahat na doon po yon. Kasama na rin po doon yung telecommuting. Any alternative work arrangement, pwedeng compressed work week, reduction of work days, including that one. So, meron po tayong meron po tayong online tawag nito notice or submission ng ganyan.
Next question po, sir.
Yes.
As per RA 1165, any progress in Section 8, the good and bad practices about the pilot program?
Ngayon po, ongoing po yan in collaboration with ILS. So, wala po tayo, hindi ko po pa nakikita yung initial na findings sila. But later on, most probably, we can discuss that or we can show you pag meron na po.
For Doc Bia naman po, from Mr. Derek Taroma, how does working from home affect psychological health? What can employers do to make sure that people are staying focused, committed, and happy?
Okay. So kanina meron mga instances na may nagre-report na ang feeling of isolation, even if for instance we're virtually connected, meron pa ring feeling na disconnect. So isa yan sa mga nakikita. Tapos stress at work, lalong-lalo na kapag hindi manage yung work organization. Or halimbawa, yung when to disconnect na sinabi ko, di ba? Dahil minsan, kapag virtual ang iyong platform, akala natin, anytime pwede tayong di ba? Anytime tawagan ka, anytime mag-meeting tayo, o kaya meeting one after the other. So, last Saturday, we're talking about some issues with work from home as well with the Human Factors Ergonomics Society, and one of the presentation was talking about conference burnout. Like, before the pandemic, swerte na kapag naka-isang meeting ka sa traffic na Maynila, di ba? Pero ngayon, ilan yung meeting mo sa isang araw. So these are things that probably can also produce some issues on stress at work, no? So maaring meron pang mga iba na magpo-produce nitong issue na ito. Kaya nga ang isa sa mga safeguards na na-mention ko ay yung batas mismo ng mental health na merong kaakibat department order na kung saan ang importante ay masuri rin ng pagawaan or kumpanya kung ano yung maaaring magdulot nito at dapat tubugon sila ng sapat dito. So again, the risk assessment is an important function of the Occupational Safety and Health Committee in your workplaces, and at the same time, there are push factors for implementing programs that would address this. Salamat. Lalong-lalo na yung yung uncertainty of the disease, particularly in the beginning part. There were a lot of articles talking about anxiety because of this. So many of these things, many factors outside of work with around our communities and society at large, that would contribute to our mental health. Salamat.
Dagdag question po, Doc. If an employee experienced eye dryness upon check-up sa Opta, the doctor said possible cause po is too much exposure sa PC monitor. Does ECC will cover the medication? The Opta doctor doesn't recommend naman a leave if mako-cover.
Ang sa employees compensation program kasi sa compensability, it is essentially replacement of income because of the disability, di ba? Isa yan sa mga tinitignan. So, isa yun sa mga punto na kung saan pagbabatayan kung mabibigyan ng benepisyo o hindi. Now, with regards yun sa kanyang mata, isa sa pinaka-importante, not only looking at compensation, but also how this can be addressed because that person may not be the only person in the company or in the organization with the same symptoms. If, for instance, they have similarity in what they are doing. Okay, salamat.
For Sir Nick po, do we need to specify the blended work arrangement and work from home arrangement to the company's OSH program?
Pwede po, wala naman po dyan na hard and fast rule. Kung ano po sa tingin nyo ay makakabuti, magiging klaro yung pag-implement dyan, so be it. Kung ano po yan. So basta maganda po yun. Specifics, concrete, kung ano man yun. So that's better off for the parties.
Dagdag pa to, sir. How about po if nagkaroon po ng accident during working hours po ng work from home? Sino po ang mag-investigate at magbibigay ng statement regarding sa accident po? And pwede daw po ba siyang i-file sa ECC?
Si Dr. Bia, alam ko compensable yan kahit work from home. Si Dr. Bia would know better than me doon sa compensability niyan.
Doc Bia, meron po kayong sagot?
Meron board resolution na nilabas ang ECC tungkol sa injury while working from home na kinukonsidera nito under certain conditions, syempre, na namama-fulfill siya na pwede siyang maging compensable. So, ito yung na-issue na nitong Marso yata. Tama ba? If I'm not mistaken. Meron pa bang tanong na kasunod yun? Compensability of injury, no? That's it, right?
Yes po.
Okay, salamat.
For Sir Nick po, normal po ba na 80% ng compensation ang ibabayad to work from home employees?
Then si Dr. Bea. So depende yan sa sa evaluation, di ba, Dr. Reza? So ang magdidesisyon niyan ay ECC ba, Dr. Bea? Si Dr. Bea.
Compensation for injury, work-related injury, or compensation as salary?
Compensation as salary po.
Oo, ikaw naman, Nick, as salary ito. Ikaw talaga.
So, sorry. Kala ko, related doon. So, ano po yung sa salary? Compensation?
Normal lang daw po ba, sir, na 80% of the compensation ang ibabayad for work from home employees?
Hindi pwede. So, at least, sabi nga natin, kung walang oras yan, walang oras din yung hindi pwedeng less than the minimum kasi ang patayon po natin yung minimum wage. Kung kahit work from home siya, pero doing the same work, that's like 8-hour work din po yan. Ang nagkaiba lang po dyan, instead of sa opisina, nagtatrabaho siya sa bahay. So, hindi po pwedeng below yung requirements of the law. Kung 8 hours yan, hindi pwedeng 80%. So, ganun po yan. Kung more than 8 hours, dapat may corresponding overtime pay po yan.
Ayan po. Check ko lang po yung mga question po. Mostly naman po ng mga questions ay mga nasagot na din po. Then similar lang din po yung mga natitirang question na which is na nasagot na din naman po. Yun po, I would like to thank Sir Nick and Doc Bia po sa pagsagot po sa ating mga questions po for the open forum po. And to formally end this event po, may we call on the OIC Deputy Executive Director of OSHC, Engineer Connie Santo Tomas for the closing remarks po.
Maraming salamat, Cha. Magandang umaga po sa inyo lahat. But first of all, gusto po nating pasalamatan ang ating resource speakers ngayong araw. From the Bureau of Working Condition, ang ating kaibigan si Mr. Nick Bon for discussing with us the salient, sabihin natin na features ng guidelines and rules governing the telecommunicating work program or yan po. So at nakita naman po natin ang pagsagot sa mga tanong ninyo, direct to the point. And you heard it from the Policy Making Bureau. And of course, also yung ating our very own from OSHC, Dr. Beatriz Villanueva, I would say one of the few experts in the field of ergonomics in the Philippines. So binigyan niya po tayo ng mga practical na solusyon sa mga common ergonomic issues na hinaharap po natin sa pagtatrabaho natin, be it at home or in our offices. And of course, yung mga references na kinakailangan po para ma-improve ang ating safety and health program, specifically in the field of ergonomics. Alam ko po, marami kayong natutunan sa ating mga resource person ngayong araw na ito. Okay, and higit sa lahat po, kami ay nagpapasalamat sa inyo, sa mga participants for your interest na matuto po about OSH by attending this series of webinars. So at yan po, maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat at we hope na kayo po ay patuloy na susubaybay sa mga webinar na ginagawa po ng Occupational Safety and Health Center. Okay, mag-iingat po tayong lahat. Again, salamat po.
And that wraps up our today's episode. Thank you everyone for your continuous support in our activities po. Thank you ulit po kay Sir Nick for the detailed discussion and to Doc Bia din po. And we hope to see you on our future activities pa din po. Stay safe and God bless po. And a few reminders po, to receive your certificate of participation, please do accomplish the evaluation form using this link or QR code po. Then the submission of evaluation forms is only until 5 p.m. today po. Maraming salamat po and stay safe po.
Buhay at lakas na